Before we dive into the blood-soaked madness of this 88 film slasher classic collection review, a quick heads up for listeners and viewers alike. These episodes come straight from the podcast Under the Stairs archives, recorded before the launch of the YouTube channel and long before video podcasts became part of the show. These reviews were originally crafted purely for audio. So if the production feels a little rougher around the edges or a little more stripped back than current episodes, that's because you're hearing the show in its earlier form, raw, passionate, and let's be honest, a little waffly at times. Whether you're revisiting these reviews or discovering them for the first time, please sit back and relax and enjoy this trip through the golden age of mass killers, inventive gore, and VH era nightmares. This podcast is not safe for work and will feature movie spoilers. It will feature scenes described of a graphic nature. It will contain language which most listeners may find offensive. Welcome to the podcast Under the Stairs. Hi everyone and welcome to the podcast Under the Stairs. This is your Sunday 88 Films Slasher Classic series of reviews. I'm your host Duncan. Welcome to the show. Up on this episode we take a look at disc number 33 in the collection. This is Sweet 16 from 1983. I'll be back to discuss that movie after the first break, but before we get to that, let's just recap where we are, ladies and gents. This is the final episode coming at you from Under the Stairs this week. Tomorrow we kick off a brand new week of podcast Under the Stairs content right here with the Summer Top 10 series. The next year we'll be covering is 2006, and oh what a stacked year that is, ladies and gents. So that will be dropping on Monday. On Thursday you will get the concluding second part of our Jaws Russian Roulette franchise retrospective, looking at Jaws Part 3 aka 3D and Jaws The Revenge aka Jaws 4. Those will be covered on the Thursday episode. On the Saturday episode, ladies and gents, is another chance for you to dictate the movies, control the selection, as it's another listener choice episode. And then on Sunday, we return to the fold, the warm embrace of the Arrow video assortment. So yeah, that is your lineup for the week. Coming tomorrow to the Teapots Collective, you get Doing the Nasty, the next instalment of our series. About a week later than expected, but everything should shape up for the end of the month, which makes me happy, ladies and gents. At the end of the week, you'll get the next instalment of Chronicle, looking at the Borderlands. It's the penultimate episode in our third season of Chronicle, looking at British folk horror. So that will be coming at the end of that week. And that's you. That is your entire lineup of podcasting content coming this week. Pretty stellar if you ask me, but ladies and gents, I am biased. It is of course my show. So let's get into this. I'm going to take a very short break just now, ladies and gents. You are going to hear promos for shows that I love. You're going to hear the trailer for Sweet 16 from 1983. When we return, we're discussing that movie right after this.
As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a gangster. And while Witch didn't make it to the top of the world, he did make the Gangs of Hollywood podcast. So join the gang and enjoy a movie review podcast about movie gangs, gangsters, mobsters, and the mayhem they cause. You can find GOH Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at GOH Pod at www.gohpod.com, as well as your favorite podcast listening app. And remember, say hello to your little friend for me.
you'd like to go for a ride.
Maybe I would.
It's like multiple stab wounds in the back, the arms, and the chest. Somebody really did a number on it.
Yeah, some new girl. She said her name was Melissa. Listen, you know, Johnny was killed.
What?
Now, you were with that boy, Johnny, last night, weren't you?
Jesus Christ, yes. We went for a drive and he took me right home.
She got back around midnight, Sheriff. I saw the boy with her and I told him to go home.
Dad, what are you doing out here?
My daughter is 15 years old.
I'll be 16 next week.
I'm not saying for sure, but it looked like the work of some kind of psychotic.
That's Melissa. She was the last person to see Johnny alive. She's beautiful.
I'll be there. See you tonight.
You know, this isn't the best part of town for a little girl, so why don't you just go home?
Tommy! Jesus Christ! I saw who did it.
You've seen him before?
Yeah, the old Indian. But he was the only one there. He had to do it.
Gray family did not do this. There's something funny going on around here. There's 2 dead kids already. 2.
The computer picked up some real interesting information on a Jason Longshadow.
On those knives, we found blood on one of them.
I should have seen it coming. Will we ever see Melissa?
But everything else fits.
Something just isn't right.
You know, Melissa, you like to make up stories, don't you? You like the attention that they get you. Well, this time your little story killed someone. You know, you might as well have put the rope around his neck yourself.
No, he mustn't.
Happy birthday, Melissa.
Well, that little girl turns me on.
Melissa.
I'm okay, Marcy.
And welcome back, ladies and gents. That trailer is remarkably intense for a movie that maybe is remarkably not intense. Let's get into this. This is Sweet 16. You've just heard the trailer for it. This came out in 1983. According to the 88 Films website, it says the year of 1983 was a fine time to be a slasher fan, with the genre creeping out classics from Sleepaway Camp through to House on Sorority Row. And for those who embrace that golden age, few knife play flicks are as beloved as Sweet 16. With a top-notch cast that includes Susan Strasberg of The Trip, Bob Hoskins of The Wild Bunch, and a Scream Queen sensation Dana Kimball of Friday the 13th 3D, this tale of childhood trauma crafts a compelling whodunit mystery around some small-town disappearances and a stack of dead bodies. Is this perpetrator male or female? And just what is going on with the boy baiting Melissa? A mysterious and alluring presence who turns a tiny Texas community upside down with her sudden appearance. A tightly directed terror title, Sweet 16 is a perfect addition to the 88 Films library and a slasher classic that will still spawn a few bad dreams. Special features on the disc are an audio commentary by the Hysteria Continues podcast team, an interview with Jim Harper, author of Legacy of Blood, a reversible sleeve with alternate non-slasher collection artwork. And the technical specs is region lock to region B. The picture format is HD 1781. Audio format is LPCM stereo. Language is English. Subtitles English. Certification 15. And the runtime is 1 hour 28 minutes. So this was a first time watch for me. Never heard of this before. So as beloved as it is, I've never heard of it. I have never heard anyone talk about it. And I follow quite a few podcast communities and podcast friends and horror sites and all the rest. I ain't ever heard anyone talk about Sweet 16 until 88 Films announced they were putting it out. Now that doesn't mean anything in the grand scheme of things, because as we have found very quickly, my knowledge of slasher movies really doesn't extend that far beyond what the collection has put out and the bigger titles that were kind of circulating back in the day. You know, the ones that you knew were slasher titles when you were growing up because you would have fucking seen them because they would have been huge at the time. So Sweet 16 comes out as this kind of... There's a lot of things written here that catch my attention, specifically Dana Kimball, Bob Hoskins, are interesting cast members, and the fact they swing it into whodunit territory, that's an interesting word, because for all intents and purposes, slashers are whodunits by their very nature. But the fact they lean into that kind of caught my attention, and I see why they have done that, because this movie is less the slasher you think it's going to be and more a kind of crime drama which dabbles in slasher elements, which might seem like I'm damning it with faint praise, but actually it was surprisingly refreshing to find a movie that, I mean, for the most part is fairly formulaic and follows an A to B to C sort of slasher template, but does it with a degree and pace of that you would expect in more a kind of serious drama thriller. Now, the best bits of this movie are the kind of Bob Hoskins investigation into who the killer actually is and trying to pick apart the mystery. Bob Hoskins playing the Tim Sheriff in this one. That's the best aspects. The kind of worst aspects, or the least successful aspects, and I imagine it's probably the reason it doesn't crop up much when people are talking about slashers and or just in general conversation anyway, is as a slasher goes, the body count in this one is surprisingly low. Not a lot of death at all, and to be honest, not a lot of death on screen. A couple of these deaths happen off screen, which I'm not sure if that's because they weren't fully committed to the genre, thought they were making something a bit classier, or there just wasn't enough money to do what they kind of wanted to do, and as a result they had to cut it all back. But a lot of death happens off screen here, and as a result it gives the movie a completely different feel and different tone. Now, that being said, there's quite a few things to enjoy here. I think the acting overall is surprisingly strong compared to other movies we've covered in a similar time frame. This one has a bit of clout amongst it, and the actors, for the most part, are playing it serious and down the middle. That helps it from my perspective. It kind of drew me in. To actually think the mystery itself is pretty well constructed. The story leads in an interesting way, and the reveal I didn't pick up on. I know a lot of other people did, but from what I read anyway, it wasn't as obvious until all the parts kind of came together and then the picture was formed, and I was like, alright, I get it now. I enjoy the kind of idea of the kind of use of the sexual wiles in the movie. I think that works quite well, and it's nice to see that being used as a potential red herring. I won't give any more away from that. I thought that was done really, really well. I think it's scored surprisingly well. It's not cheesy in any way, shape or form, and the cinematography is quite strong. It's quite striking. So I like the look of the movie as well. Doesn't look like it cost a lot of money, but I think they pull it in quite well together overall. However, I imagine if I'm a slasher fan and I'm looking for a slasher movie, Sweet 16 doesn't really fit the bill, and it's one of those movies that once again 88 Films have put out, which is either tangentially linked in or is maybe not necessarily fully on board to be considered a slasher movie. A lot of the tropes that make a particular slasher movie are either kind of lessened or not here at all. And this becomes a murder whodunit more than anything else, which, like I say, I'm fine with. But when we're talking about the connection as a collection, and a connection to that collection as a whole, I could see why people would find this a bit boring, or maybe lacking in the kind of aggression or offensive that they are used to seeing from a slasher classic title. Because there are tons of titles in this collection thus far that have been brainless, soulless, but pretty fucking bloody. This is definitely not one of those. It felt a little bit more mature than the genre needs to an extent, but I'm cool with that, to be honest. This felt refreshing to me. It's under an hour and a half. It feels a bit longer than that. It does lag in the middle, and that is a bit of a negative, but it felt a bit more mature, and as a result, when I was watching it, I found myself kind of invested with what was happening, and specifically with the mystery more than anything else. I didn't really want much more detail, except we need to solve this mystery and it needs to be satisfying. And for the most part, I felt the reveal, when it comes, was handled surprisingly well. I enjoyed that aspect, so that is its biggest selling point to me. Overall, I think Sweet 16 is one of these kind of compromise titles on the list, in that if it's not a slasher, where do you put it? If it's not a horror movie, what genre does it sit in? Because there are plenty of avenues you could go down here which would tell you that it's one, not a horror movie, and two, not a slasher movie. But I don't think it necessarily fits in as a drama or really as a thriller. I think it kind of sits just out of them, and maybe whilst not fully being in any other genre, so you kind of want to gravitate it towards the horror side. And then you have to kind of subcategorise it. And when you're doing that, where does it sit in the subcategories of horror? And you kind of have to compromise again and make it a slasher title. So I can see why it's maybe on the list. I can see why people don't necessarily talk about it. And I can see why it might be a frustrating watch to some. Overall though, I really enjoyed it. I thought there was quite a few elements that worked very well for me. I'm a sucker for a whodunit. You should know that by now. Like Giallos are mostly whodunits, and they make less sense than Sweet 16 overall. So I thought that was kind of well done. Sweet 16 owes more to the traditional gialli than it does necessarily to the kind of later gialli which would inspire the slashers. So it's in that realm. I think it is a surprising little title, definitely one you should try and search out. The weird thing though is, for all its praise that I've lavished on it, I don't know if I'll ever watch this title again. And that's the weird thing about it. You know, was thoroughly enjoying it when I was watching it, finished in a way that I enjoyed, sat down. I'm going to give it a relatively good score here in a second, but then I was thinking, when am I ever going to switch Sweet 16 back on? And to be honest, I don't know if it ever will. I think this might be a compelling little watch, which is a one and done for me, which feels a bit weird because there are titles that I have scored lower in the Slasher Classics collection that I know I'll pick up again and watch. So it's just one of those weird kind of entries that comes in and makes you kind of sit back and go, huh. It is like, for all the Italian collection is a hodgepodge of, you know, sci-fi and crime and rip-off cinema and giallo and spaghetti westerns and all the rest. It's all over the place. There is a common through line there, and that common through line is they're all Italian movies. The Slasher Classics collection is a completely different beast in that we've went all over the place, and there doesn't feel like there should, well, there is a through line where there should be. There should be a clear through line of these are all slashers, just the prerequisite, these are all slashers, and that collection has never done it, and as a result, you're in that position where you're like, this is dumb, it's fucking stupid, you know, it's not a great movie, would totally watch it again, to this is a well-made movie, this has got great cast, has an interesting, compelling story, we'll probably never watch it again. It's a weird kind of dichotomy that I'm not sure my head has quite wrapped itself around yet. A duality of watching movies and trying to gauge my enjoyment in a position of rewatchability, and Sweet 16 maybe just doesn't cut it on that level. When it comes to a grade though, 4 out of 5. I actually really enjoyed this one. It's one of the better ones from the Slasher Classics collection I've seen in a while, and definitely one that I would recommend, even if it is just for a one and done. You can pick this title up relatively cheap now, about £8.99 or something from most sites. So yeah, I would do that. I would take a punt on it, or even get a second-hand copy, take a punt on that, give it a watch, and then sling it somewhere else and continue on with your journey. But there you go, 4 out of 5 for Sweet 16 from this guy. I'm going to take a very short break. When I come back, I'm closing out the show and I'm doing it right after this. And you've been listening to the podcast Under the Stairs. This has been your Sunday 88 Films Slasher Classic Collection. This has covered disc number 33, which was a little bit of Sweet 16. In 3 weeks' time, we will be turning our attention to one that is out of print from 88 Films, so I do not have a copy of this one. As always, if you have a copy that you're looking to get rid of, just give me a contact and we'll see if we can work out some sort of deal. Failing that, I'm going to have to try and track down this. It is such a limited run. I believe Code Red put it out in the States for a limited run, and you can't really get that anymore. And yeah, it sells for a silly figure online. Definitely one that I would not pay to have it in there. However, it is available elsewhere, which might be the way I have to watch this movie in order to continue continuity on this series. I hate it when they're there for a little bit. This one was not out for long and then just went out of print, so I don't know what's going on with that. I don't know if it's a case of they don't have confidence that they'll sell that many, so they make it as a very limited run, or they literally just lose their kind of distribution pretty quick. I don't know. Anyway, let's get into this. This one was released by them back in 2018. The next one will be Blood Harvest. Let's see, it says, and this is the blurb from what was on their website, which has now been removed. It says, prolific B-movie maverick Bill Redbane of the Giant Spider Invasion opted for some contemporary real-world horror carnage and caught wind of his slice and dice craze with his classic Blood Harvest from 1987. Unleashed at a time when the slasher movie was awash with sequels, Blood Harvest stood out thanks to a lunatic performance from Tiny Tim, the legendary American television personality who offers up a creepy and instantly cult sing-song scene featuring a masked man on the rampage, twists and turns that will keep you glued to the gore, and a final reel that packs in plenty of sadism and shocks. Blood Harvest gets its high-definition worldwide premiere from the celluloid plasma addicts at 88 Films. The edition contents had a reversible sleeve with alternate artwork, a booklet with notes by Justin Martell and Callum Waddle on the first pressing alone. Special features had Tiny Tim in Niagara Falls, September the 3rd, 1987, behind the scenes of Blood Harvest, featuring on-set footage and interviews with Tiny Tim and director Bill Redbane, an alternative Nightmare opening credit sequence, and the technical specs on the disc were region lot to region B, picture format HD 133.1, audio format is LPCM stereo, language is English with optional English subtitles, certification 18, and runtime 1 hour 28 minutes. So that'll be what we're covering in 3 weeks' time. Like I say, if I can't source a disc, then we'll be sailing the seas, I think, for sure. If you do have a copy and you are serious about getting rid of it and you don't think that you want to charge £30 for a movie, which I'm not spending £30 on, then get in touch. If you are one of those, I'm just going to keep it and sell it for £30. Good luck with that. See how that works out for you. I don't think you're getting £30 for a movie called Blood Harvest. I'm just saying. Anyway, that's what we'll be covering in 3 weeks' time. There's a multitude of ways you can check out the show. As always, wherever you're listening to it right now, hit subscribe. That way you never miss any of the content coming out from Under the Stairs. Also, while you're at it, why not do a little subscribe on the Teapots Collective, and you get all that stuff over there as well. Visit our website, teapotscast.com. You can buy merch to support the show by going to teapotscast.bigcartel.com. You can check us out on Facebook, facebook.com/groups/TPutsCast. And the Teapots Collective on Facebook is facebook.com/TPutsCast. Couldn't be any easier than that, ladies and gents. Reach out and touch myself and the Baz on the twin prongs of social media sexiness. Instagram and Twitter both can be followed at TPutsCast, and we're available on the Flick Chat app as well, which you can download for Android and iOS or join code as TPutsCast. The podcast Under the Stairs will return to you tomorrow with the next instalment of our summer Teapots Top 10 series. We'll be looking at 2006, but until then, wherever you are, where the time zone is and whatever you're up to in this big bad world of ours, please take care of yourselves out there. This is Duncan McLeish broadcasting live from Under the Stairs, and I am signing off.